Hi, I'm glad you're here. This is the audio version of the book Peak, a resource for recovery, authored by Faye Anam Avis. Chapter 11, Fearless Relational Audit. I will begin this chapter by focusing on 3 of the questions in the life review process that require a significant amount of courage to contemplate. Bullet. If you were going to live your life over again, what would you change? Bullet. Everyone has had disappointments. What have been the main disappointments in your life? Bullet. What was the hardest thing you had to face in your life? Please describe it. These questions will likely surface some uncomfortable memories, tragic events, difficult circumstances, and the actions of others that have impacted us negatively. In addition, there are likely to be memories of our own failures. There will be examples of poor judgment that we wish we could change, disappointments in the way we handled certain things, and hardships we have had to face as a consequence of some of our actions. Some of those failures will be in our relationship with our children. It is important that we not try to avoid these failures. This may seem counterintuitive. After all, we are already feeling badly about ourselves as it is. Why focus on our failures in a way that only makes us feel worse? Besides, these are now all in the past. Isn't it time to let bygones be bygones? In addition, I'm not the one who broke off the relationship with my adult children. That's the problem here, and that clearly is not my fault. The benefits of a fearless relational audit. There are 5 reasons why it is helpful in our recovery to engage in a fearless relational audit that explores the ways we have failed to be our best selves. 1. By conducting a fearless relational audit, we can assure ourselves that we have done everything within our power to address the estrangement of our adult children. 2. By conducting a fearless relational audit, we can address problematic patterns in our lives and improve our relationships with others in the future. 3. By conducting a fearless relational audit, we can find relief from guilt feelings through our spiritual source. 4. By conducting a fearless relational audit, we may find it easier to forgive others, including our adult children, for the ways they have hurt us. 5. By conducting a fearless relational audit, we are less likely to engage in problematic behaviors involving food, money, sex, or consumption of drugs or alcohol. Obstacles to move out of the way. Before going further, it is important to discuss some misconceptions that get in the way of a relational audit. Here are some of them. I am loved because I don't make mistakes. Admitting them means I won't be loved. This is a big one. For many of us, the love we have experienced has been highly conditional and threatened to be withdrawn when we fall short of the highest or most arbitrary of expectations. Remember, our spiritual source is gracious, forgiving, and intends goodness for us. This is the essence of an unconditional love that is unbounded. Fortunately, there are people in the world who reflect this love, however imperfectly. They don't need us to be perfect. In fact, it is generally the case that people are easier to love when they can own up to their frailties than when they try to achieve a perfection that makes the rest of us mortals look bad. Here's the truth. Owning up to our faults generally makes us more lovable, not less. If I am wrong, it makes you right. This is another big one, especially relationships. It turns relationships into a contest of egos with winners and losers. If I am in a relationship with someone who unintentionally flaunts their successes, and I find myself envious of them, my admission doesn't excuse them from examining their pride and insensitivity. They may or may not choose to do that, but that's their business. My admission of failings in relationship to my children doesn't justify their ending the relationship with me. It simply puts me in a healthier place to move forward in my future. Here's the truth. Admitting where I am wrong is an act of courage that others may or may not reciprocate. My faults are the cause of our estrangement. The mystery of estrangement was discussed in a previous chapter. It is impossible to say with any certainty what causes estrangement. At most, we can say that there are risk factors. Undoubtedly, there are genetic predispositions that are risk factors. Some adult children of divorce end up estranged from one or both parents, but not in every divorce. At most, we can say that divorce is a risk factor for estrangement. Some adult children who were physically or emotionally abused at home end up estranged from one or both parents, but not in every case. The most we can say is that abuse is a risk factor. We can't say that workaholic parents, or alcoholic parents, or inattentive parents, or wayward parents, or moody parents, or virtually any other parent is the cause of estranged adult children. Here's what we can say. Admitting the ways that I could have been a better parent will probably make me a better person, but it's not the cause of the estrangement from my adult children. Admitting my failure makes my whole life a failure. This is the all or nothing fallacy. Admitting a fault does not negate all the good qualities of your life. In fact, every gift has a shadow side. If you are a visionary, you probably are not great at details, meaning you might forget people's birthday. If you are an adventurer, you are probably not great with routine, meaning you might introduce an element of chaos into people's lives. If you are great at thinking about things deeply, you are probably not as good at being spontaneous and lively, meaning you might feel a little stiff at parties. Only God is the fount of all blessing, as the song goes. For the rest of us human souls, we are a mixed bag. Here's the truth. Our strengths are not negated by our failures. Correction is rejection. This one is last for a reason. A few of us, are fortunate enough to have people we trust who will challenge us when we go off course. Many of us have experienced correction as a form of rejection. People point out what is wrong with us as a way of justifying their pushing us away. There are people who are important exceptions to that experience. If you have found one or two, make sure that you keep your heart open when they challenge you. The pain of parental estrangement can cloud our best thinking. Having a couple of people who can help us find true north when our compass has gone haywire is one of the greatest gifts we can ever find. Here's the truth. There are a few people who love us enough to tell us the truth. Listen to them. Correction is not rejection. It is critical that you absorb what has been written above before moving on. If you find the remainder of this chapter emotionally threatening or discouraging, you may need to pause, go back to the obstacles, and do some more work with them. Indirect and direct faults. I want to make the distinction between indirect and direct faults. Indirect faults are those that impact others, including children, by creating a difficult environment for them to grow up in. For example, problems in a marriage relationship have a negative impact on children, even though the parent may be attentive to the needs of their child. Indirect faults can range from physical, emotional, spousal abuse, to marital infidelity, to poor communication or conflict management skills. Indirect faults also include modeling problematic behaviors like drug or alcohol abuse, lack of self-care on the part of the parent, or failure to take responsibilities seriously. Indirect faults can also include failure to maintain a safe and ordered physical environment, or introducing children to other adults who are not physically or emotionally safe. The consequences of unaddressed issues in the life of a parent can also erupt in children. Failing to deal with mood disorders or other mental health issues can also be indirect faults. In addition, children need to see parents successfully negotiate relationships with other family members, friends, and neighbors. Direct faults are those that involve behaviors in relationship to a child that impact them negatively. These range from a lack of parental involvement to harsh or inappropriate discipline. Direct faults can also include a failure to communicate in healthy ways, failure to adequately shelter or nourish, or failure to see that a child is provided with adequate educational opportunities. Some faults are subtler. Parents can sometimes overfunction in a way that fosters unrealistic expectations of them and other adults in their lives, teachers, coaches, bosses, work associates. They can also shield their children from age-appropriate challenges to a degree that arrests their development. The process. I call the process a fearless relational audit. It is fearless because the entire process is grounded in the love and grace of our spiritual source. Before you begin, it is important to establish your confidence in this love and grace through prayer. This is also a relational audit. Focus particularly on the most important relationships in your life. Think about how you have related to yourself. Physically, do you eat a healthy diet, exercise regularly, get enough sleep? Do you have regular checkups with doctors, dentists, and eye doctors? Mentally, do you work on having positive thoughts about yourself? Do you protect yourself by setting appropriate boundaries in relationship with others? Think about your relationship with your spiritual source, who many call God. Do you have a clear set of values that guide your life? Do you have a purpose statement? Do you have a set of spiritual practices to nourish your relationship with God? Have you developed an understanding of your spiritual source that is good and loving rather than harsh and punitive? Think about your relationship with others, friends, family, work associates. Do you keep your word? Communicate honestly? Really listen to them? Spend appropriate amounts of time with them and give them reason to trust you? Do you assume innocence? Do you bring out the best in them? Do you support them in their dreams and forgive them for their faults? Now, with pen and paper in hand, reflect on the questions at the beginning of this chapter. If you were going to live your life over again, what would you change? A. What would you change in general? B. What would you change in the environment you created for your children, including your marriage? C. What would you change in the way you related to your children? Everyone has had disappointments. What have been the main disappointments in your life? A. Where specifically have you been disappointed in yourself? B. Who has disappointed you that you need to forgive? What was the hardest thing you had to face in your life? What mistakes had the biggest impact upon the lives of your children? Put the list aside and return to it a few days later. Make notes of anything you would add or change. Find someone that you trust. A pastor, a counselor, a sponsor, or a special friend. In a spirit of prayer, read through the list. Ask your spiritual source for forgiveness. Then receive that forgiveness. Leave the list with your helper, or burn it as a symbol that you are letting it go. In some cases, you may feel the need to make amends, that is, go to those you wronged and ask forgiveness. This should only be done with the guidance of a counselor, pastor, or sponsor. This is the end of Chapter 11. If you found this helpful, please feel free to share the link with others who may also find it helpful. Please click the like button and subscribe and the notification bell so that you will get notifications every time we upload a new chapter. Also, feel free to comment in the section below the video and we will respond.